Um, Let's do a roll call.
Kim Connor.
Here?
David Hardy.
Here.
Peter Lewis.
Here.
Neil Tillman.
Here.
Neil Zuckerman.
Here.
All right. So the first thing on our agenda is to approve the minutes from the February meeting. Does anybody have any corrections, additions? No?
No.
So I guess I'll take a motion to accept the minutes. Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, passes. The first thing on our agenda tonight is a public hearing for Kristen Sorensen, 1,000 Old Albany Post Road in Garrison. I'm going to have Linda read the public hearing notice.
Thanks. Okay. Kristen Sorensen, 1,000 Old Albany Post Road, Garrison. The applicant is proposing a lot line adjustment between two adjacent parcels along the east side of Old Albany Post Road. The proposal is to transfer approximately 0.324 acres of land currently owned by Thompson Watt, representing an unused narrow access way to their lot, to Sorensen. No new development is proposed. The land transfer is deemed a subdivision pursuant to Chapter 112 of the Town of Philipstown Code.
So does anyone on the board have any comments? No. Ron?
This is a public hearing. You may want the applicant to make a presentation first. He's here to present.
So this, I'm Eric Stark, husband of Kristen Sorensen. And we live here at 1,000 Old Albany Post Road. And when we bought this property, this lot back here was subdivided into multiple lots illegally, and they were forced to recombine them. When they did that subdivision, they created two entrances to this lot back here, lot 50, one here to the south of our property, and two to the north, one for each lot. There were three lots, so one for each lot that was used to, that lot 50 was subdivided into. So anyway, so when they recombined them to make one lot, it created these two superfluous entryways to this lot. So they agreed to give us this 40 feet to add it back to this lot 48. We were asked to go before the zoning board because that required two zoning variances. One, because we were both non-conforming lots. This is rural conservation, requires 10 acres. And two, because they would no longer have 35 feet of road frontage by giving us this 40 feet here. So we went before the zoning board and we were approved for those variances. And so we're now back before the planning board to request this lot line revision, moving our lot line here in 48 from this position to this position, taking in and absorbing that 40 feet into lot 48. It'll still be non-conforming, but it'll be less non-conforming, and it sort of resolves it resolves a long-term problem that occurred with the illegal subdivision of these lots to begin with. Just as a note, it's not totally relevant here. Throughout all of this craziness, we ended up buying this other lot here, and we ended up, part of the reason why they're giving us this piece here is because we sold them this lot here, which was the last remaining parcel of this subdivision. So now they actually do have 40 feet on the road. They're two separate lots, but And they now have 10 acres of land. They have the original 6 acres that they bought, plus the 4 acres that we sold them. So they've got 10 acres of land and technically 40 feet of entryway on the southern side. So the whole original subdivision is back down to 3 lots, essentially. Although I can't really say that because this has not been reabsorbed into their property yet. The lot that was sold to them, they still own that. And technically, I mean, it is a buildable lot, although I think that they have stated that their intention is to absorb it when they can. So that's, any questions?
Do I go to you or do I go to the public?
Public.
Okay, so if no one on the board has any comments, this is a public hearing, so if there's anyone from the public who's here to speak about this, this is your opportunity. Nobody? Okay. So I guess I'll move, so I need a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. And now Ron.
Yeah, the applicant, as he indicates, it's merely a lot line adjustment, qualifies as a subdivision pursuant to your Chapter 112 Land Development Regulations. He's obtained necessary variances to deal with frontage issues. So it's now back before you. You're having a public hearing. The latest plat satisfies prior technical concerns that were raised by the board and our office. So with the close of the public hearing, I think the board is now in a position to consider taking action on the application. First, you'd make a secret declaration, and thereafter, you'd consider subdivision approval of the project.
Okay. And Steve, do you have anything?
No, the public hearing has been closed. I think the appropriate thing, if the board's inclined to grant the application, is to direct Ron to prepare resolutions for adoption next month's meeting, adopting a negative declaration under SECRA and approving the application.
You had a question, Neil?
No, I was asking where we were with the C-Corp, so.
Okay. So anyone want to make a motion to direct Ron to prepare secret?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No opposed. Okay. And second to, what's the term? To accept this subdivision, to approve the subdivision?
No, actually, well, you just directed me to prepare resolutions for action on the next meeting. So I'll provide you next meeting with draft secret declaration and a subdivision approval reso. And you'll formally take action next month.
Okay, and we don't need a resolution to prepare the subdivision approval? I mean,
Well,
do we need to make a
did it
motion
all
for
with-
that?
I think you
did it all
just
with-
did it.
Part of the secret? Okay.
Sometimes, I don't want to make it confusing, Kim. We kind of have two different ways of proceeding. Sometimes the board votes to approve everything, and then Ron submits the resolutions next month, and you just kind of ratify them. And other times, we direct Ron to prepare the resolutions and formally vote on them at the next month's meeting. The second way is really the more formal, better way to do it, but we've done it both ways. So this time, we're going to do it the second way, and unless the board feels otherwise, and Ron will prepare the resolutions, we'll adopt them next month.
Okay. So that's it for, that. So
We're all done.
you're all done. See you next month. So the second thing on the agenda is under old business, Griffin's Landscaping Corporation, site plan approval.
I'll stay close. I don't have much to say on this. At last meeting, you directed Ron to prepare a resolution for approval. There was a little back and forth communication the last couple of days, but that got straightened out, so I think we're ready.
The board will recall, you closed the public hearing last month. You had it open for a couple of months to make sure public had plenty of opportunity to comment. You since closed it. There's a variety of issues that came out of the public hearing and prior technical issues that I had identified in an earlier technical review. And what I've provided to you tonight is a draft resolution for a negative seeker declaration on the project, as well as a draft site plan approval resolution. And they're both before you for consideration, and they identify all of the board's standard conditions as well as the items that came out of the public hearing and the items in my earlier technical review. So I believe it's inclusive of the open conditions that must be resolved as part of the site plan approval.
Okay. So I need a motion to approve the neg deck.
Second.
And also to,
Yeah, but you want to probably vote on the first resolution first, and then, I mean, you could do it the other way if you wanted.
No,
It's just more orderly if you.
accustomed to chairing this meeting. Yeah, thanks. So I have a motion, a second, and all in favor? Aye. Aye. All opposed? No. And then it's a two-step process. There's also the second piece to approve. Okay, so need a motion. And what do we call this approval? How do we refer to it?
Amended site plan approval.
Amended site plan.
Amended
yeah.
site plan approval. So a motion to approve the amended site plan.
I'll make that motion.
Second? All in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving right along. So item 3 on the agenda, Manitou Property Company LLC has been withdrawn for this month. The application hasn't been withdrawn, but they're going to come back to us with a revision. So they're not on the agenda tonight. Number 4, Westchester Modular Homes, David and Joanna Brenner, property located at 530 East Mountain Road South in Cold Spring. Consideration of a negative secret declaration and site plan approval. Is there anyone here representing them? No, because we're just
Yeah,
gonna,
same as the last one.
right. So, anybody, nobody has anything to say, right? Okay. So I'll take a motion to make a negative secret declaration.
I'll make a motion to make the negative secret declaration.
I'll take a second.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And now we need a motion to approve the site plan.
So moved.
Second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So, there you go, Ron.
Yep, thank you.
All right. Number 5, Stonecrop Gardens, 61-115 Stonecrop, Cold Spring. Amended site plan approval for the replacement of a building destroyed by a fire and expansion of facilities. Responses, Town Engineer Ron Gaynor's comments dated 2/14/17. So, Glenn, you're up.
Last month, we presented this plan to you, discussed it, you had a site visit a couple of weeks ago on a Sunday morning. Ron was unable to make it that day, but I went out subsequently with him. We walked the site, went over some of the things I showed him the site, walked him through the driveways. You saw the driveways. You saw the trees that are to be removed. And we've made some responses to his comments. We still have some work to do, which is normally handled under the conditions. I think the biggest thing that was of some discussion is the location of the handicap parking and the access to the site. There are several reasons why we want to keep it there. We understand the proximity issue that the planning board had, but there are other issues that may not be quite so apparent, particularly in terms of how you approach the project when you enter the garden. It's beyond my expertise to explain that, so I've asked Mary Rice, who designed this, who's a landscape architect that you all know, and designed the site, to come and explain why we chose the place we chose, why it was chosen, why it's important to have it where it is, and why it makes the site work better for the garden and for the people that'll visit it. Mary, you have to talk into that thing.
I have some handouts in there. Good evening, thank you, Mary Rice. I met with Carolyn and the staff quite a while ago, don't remember, last year, and they spoke to me about how the garden functions, what some of their conflicts are, what they were trying to resolve, that they were going to be putting in the new building, that it would finally help them resolve the issue of ticket collection for garden visitors, but mostly it would provide this space for programs, the educational programs, primarily at the gardens. Today, basically on this site plan, this is the existing parking lot. It's a little bit enlarged on this plan, but basically this is the limit of parking. There's a welcome pavilion here, or if you go on the garden website, it's called the entrance pavilion. For some reason, they started to call it the welcome pavilion for this project. And in that pavilion is where they post the interpretive map. They will post what flowers are in bloom that week, upcoming events, the ticket cost, open days, the schedule for the year, etc. And then the thought was, or the idea is that they would proceed on this boardwalk, come through, which is not on our map, come through the conservatory to the potting shed and purchase their tickets and then go on through the garden. And the problems they were having is that the existing configuration allows people to come through the garden this way. It's not clearly identified. People don't understand that's where they're supposed to go. Over time, I think the plant material has grown in and covered or closed in the welcome pavilion. So on this new phase, they also said we really need more parking. We've looked at their almost 190 open days, Monday to Friday and Sundays, all their special events, Mother's Day being one of the biggest drawers, and other open days. Maybe they'll have spread throughout the day 250 visitors or more. There's 7 or 11 open Sundays, and then Monday through Friday from April 1st to October 31st. The gardens are closed on the off-season, so there's no snow plowing, there's no shoveling, although there is for the full-time employees. So with that, we looked at all of the numbers, and we looked at the code, and we came up with a parking count that would meet their needs. And that is what this parking lot provides, with maybe a few extra spaces. When we were out at the site, I think it was Neil that suggested I had designed this as a two-way road, thinking people would pull in and out of here and go whichever way they want. Neil felt strongly, and I believe the rest of the board, that there should be a one-way loop, which we are fine. It's wide enough so that if someone decides to go the wrong way, they can do that. The intention is that as people come into the parking lot, it becomes part of the garden. If you are familiar with it now, you know that all of the parking spaces are very organic. They are surrounded by plant material that's identified, specimens or, perennials, etc. So that will continue, but now we have actually regularized the spaces so that they meet the code. And we go up into this wooded area, and the intention is to feel as though we're fitting the cars between the trees. Yes, we will lose trees immediately around, but a vast majority of the trees are oaks, which, I've seen some amazing survival rates with oaks because they are a taproot, or deeper, as opposed to maples. So we can come pretty close to an oak, and it could survive 10 years. I've seen them survive 15 and more years, even coming close to them on a driveway. And if, I think because it is Stone Crop Gardens, they will be watching their trees and watching their plant material, and they're very proactive with the care of trees and down. So as you come through this space, you would again loop until you find your space. There will be wayfinding throughout that now will say one way and parking, and then at this point, there will be handicap parking only. And this is the little permeable paver courtyard, or parking court. There are 3 handicap parking spaces, and I did have more in the bag, but the pavilion today, this is on the website. If you go to their website and you go to garden photos, this is the first photos that come up, the entrance pavilion. As you can see, and I'm sorry, I do have more in the bag, but if you want to pass that down. It's an experience. Again, the garden etiquette is posted in there, the rules and regulations of the garden, flowers in bloom, etc., directions. So that would be the feel of this welcome pavilion, which is at the head of this handicap court. Everyone that parks, regardless of where they park in the rest of the lot, they're led either along the road to this point or on a trail, and they all end up to this welcome pavilion, which is the garden entry. It's a boardwalk because we are coming up and preserving all of the existing grade so that we can walk through the trees. It will be planted in a woodland, native woodland, or other fashion. It'll be an experience and part of the entrance. It's the beginning of the entrance to the garden. You come through that. This is virtually flat elevation-wise. You come across, all handicapped accessible. So this is basically a flat route of walkway. I don't think at any point, maybe only this section is a 4%, otherwise it's about a 2-3% grade. This location was chosen because, again, it brought us all the way up to the highest point of the parking facility. I forget how many feet below, maybe we're at around 1,095 here, and this is 5 feet higher. When you park down here, we're another maybe 15 feet lower. So what the experience of coming to Stonecrop now, if you are if you need handicap accessibility, you have to really struggle through steeper than allowable slopes if you're not staying through this path. I don't even know that this boardwalk, I don't remember how it ends today. I don't know. I would think it's ramped at the end, but I'm not sure. But this now becomes a very beautiful walk. It's designed to align when you come through the woods to this open alley of oaks and a little view of the lake and pavilion at the end. And then with everybody else, you would come to the ticket window and then come through the garden on all handicap accessible slopes. And then we hit the rest of the garden, which isn't necessarily all handicap accessible. It's existing conditions. So the other thing that this finally does, what was happening is because this is now closed off with roping and posts, people were sneaking up through here thinking there was no parking, let me go through here. What this design does finally is to eliminate the vehicular pedestrian conflict points, because this is the only place where vehicles can stay. Once you're out of your cars, it's all a pedestrian experience. And that is actually one of the critical points that they were concerned, because not only are pedestrians venturing through all of the walkways, but cars also kind of looking for more parking. And I know that on the site visit, you asked about parking over here. We feel that will now really open that up. I have a wonderful father, and on the weekends, he would take us for drives. And if he saw an open driveway or an interesting road, he would go up it because it was fun. And I think that people, once we open this for the handicap, which now it has to be opened all the time, it will open the road up to any number of vehicles, then backing up, trying to get out of here, and even kind of coming up this way potentially. So there's no vehicles in this design beyond the parking lot. I'd be happy to take questions.
I'd like to make a couple more comments that, the big concern really that was expressed by the board was the distance that a handicapped person would have to travel. And it is to code. It's not excessive in terms of what is allowable. So that's an important point to keep. During the discussions we had since the site walk, Mary made a comment that putting it up here is handicapping the handicap. And by that, I think she meant that the garden experience begins here. You get your information, you see what's available, you see the map, this all would be missed. And as you walk up here, or as you roll up here, if that's the case, you come across here and you see this vista, which if you move the parking lot up, you're going to miss that. So in a sense, we don't want to handicap the handicap. We also, I think Alexis, who went on the site, and we looked around. She looked around, I think it was she, and came across the Constitution Marsh website. And the website plainly has a sign that says, "This is not an easy place to tour. If you need help, call ahead, and we'll have somebody ready to help you get from place to place." We're perfectly willing to put that on the website, so that's available to the people.
It actually is on the website already.
Oh, okay.
And they do go and they meet people. They have for years.
And as we
Call ahead, and you have to call to actually join a workshop or anything else, so you make those arrangements.
And as we stated, as Mary intimated, there is service that's available when we have a really serious, a more difficult person with more difficulty needs to be transported. We'd be happy to transport them. But when we do have something that meets the code, we really don't want to sacrifice the experience that we're providing, or that they are providing, I should say, to the public that does come visit the site. So we ask your indulgence on that, in that regard. And again, we'll be happy to try to answer any questions.
So I'll just start here. So what you're doing here is you're building a new building that's going to house more people than what was there before, for lectures and things like that. So you might actually be drawing people who expect to have not a walking through the garden experience, but a sitting experience, which is part of why this is a concern, because obviously, someone who has mobility issues is not necessarily going to be climbing up and down paths in the garden, but they are maybe interested in gardens and might be coming to your new building. So that changes it just a little bit for me. Does anybody else have comments? Neil?
Well, just outside, I see a turnaround there. Can you, and I apologize for not being able to make the site visit, but going on the elevation and the code.
Yeah.
Tell me about that road leading up to the parking lot, the area just outside of the new building. It appears to be a turnaround, correct? So
It's
that's a service
service.
road? That's a service road to the building?
Right.
It's for the caterers or a van. We've been able to turn a van around in that space, but it's only meant for when they have their Sunday teas, they'll have the caterer come, drop off supplies.
Okay, but it's a usable road. It's not a gravel footpath or anything like that?
It'll be a gravel surface, but an item 4 gravel surface,
okay.
yeah. And it's basically the same road that's there today. The only difference is it's slightly enlarged on either side.
And so what is the distance from the proposed parking area? I'm assuming that's the path that they take to the building. So what is that distance?
This distance is a half a football field. It's about 150 feet of boardwalk and path
So
through
it's
the
50
woods.
yards. And then if they want to go to the building, they have to go on the item 4.
But if you've gone to West Point Foundry Cove, it's a handicap accessible. It's a very small aggregate, a pebble.
Oh, Mary, go to talk to the
I'm
mic.
sorry. At West Point Foundry, West Point Preserve, the entire parking area has a gravel paved 2 or a similar grid system filled with gravel, which we're looking at for here. It would start here and continue to the building, and it has the finished surface is a finer size, a quarter inch, versus normally in our driveways we'll use a 3/8 inch pea gravel. This is a smaller aggregate, and it's ADA compliant. So it's a gravel surface compacted. And so this is a flat walk, half a football field long, and then another, I would say, it's about the same distance.
So it's 100 yards,
So
half of which is on some sort of coarse aggregate, not concrete, not tarmac.
no, it's not asphalt.
Okay, you see where
Not
I'm headed
asphalt.
with this.
We did consider that, but we're looking at stormwater solutions as well. And if you have visited West Point, again, there are the handicap spaces. It's an outdoor museum. It's an outdoor space. You park, and the experience starts once you get out of your car and you go on your wheelchairs on all of the either gravel or wood chip trails. So, the other,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
well, I was going to go back to Kim so we can finish.
Well, the other half of my concern has to do with the language in the code, which sorry I don't have it here. I read it out last month, and it essentially says that the handicap parking area will be as close as possible, in not very legal terms, but that's essentially what it says, is it will be as close as possible to the building that it services.
Okay.
It doesn't say for an experience, for a nice walking experience. There's no language that mitigates that requirement. And
That's
you
true,
know where
not
these things-
specifically, but if you look, it'll also say, when you're going to a site and there's one building, it's the main building, it shall be as close as possible. But this is not a site where you're going to one building, that is the event. Then it must be as close to the accessible pathway as possible. And that's what we've done here. And going back, when people come to the garden is open about 190 days of the year. They're just open for primarily for people to come and walk the garden. Again, look at the website, see what's in bloom, or just because you're going to be up here and you want to come to a beautiful place. There are events, workshops, and lectures. They are held, the workshops and lectures and/or lectures that they have now are held in the library, which is over here on the site. You know, it's like over here. Quite a distance further from the parking lot, but that's what they're doing today, and it's not handicap accessible. So those happen, they have those now, about 6 to 7 of those workshops and lectures a year. They intend for there to be maybe 10 of those workshops. About 10 or 12 people now join those workshops, and they don't think that in the Bothy that it'll be any much larger than that many. They don't think that they can accommodate 20 people, let's say, but so somewhere less than 20. So the lectures, so probably throughout the year of the 190 days, there are maybe 30 times of the year, 30 days, where there might be a workshop or a lecture, including Sunday teas, which people are coming to the garden. All of the events that they now have and foresee are related to people that are coming to the garden, to see the garden and then having tea, coming to the alpine plant sale and going to a lecture on alpine plants. So they're really not coming to the Bothy just for a lecture. They don't foresee that. It's part of the whole garden experience. They would be venturing out into the garden. They'll be checking in there. They'll be going to the workshop and to a lecture within the Bothy. That may happen and not go out into the garden. But again, that's less than 10 days of the year. So it's still, with all of that, they're still coming to the garden through the welcome pavilion, which it's an important aspect for them, and they've safely kept all the cars off of the rest of the site by doing it this way. And they feel that they're walking on a regular sidewalk or handicap accessible way. That's not difficult, and I think you can't compare to today's conditions.
Well, I understand the need to mitigate this. I mean, I'm just pointing out the code sets a very strict standard, and of course, there's going to be ways that you have to try and work around it. Mary, where I get hung up is that we might think it's fine and say, okay, well, that'll work. The problem is, at some point in the future, somebody could come up there and take issue with stone crop and say, this doesn't make it. You're preventing me from getting into this building. And they can take that up with stone crop. At that point, you're gone, we're gone, everybody's gone. It's just stone crop stuck with a potential lawsuit. And I think you have to sort of think about their liabilities when you go through this.
I have a question.
Neil's next.
That's right. So, two things. One, Glenn, I'm not entirely sure that if our former and sorely missed fellow board member Pat Sexton was sitting here, I'm not sure she would interpret the handicapping the handicapped would be necessarily the notion of having easier access to the parking area. I would ask, though, to you and to our attorney for citations both of within our own code as well as in the federal code of ADA, because I do not know if the standards that you are stating meet those. I would very much like to know them. I actually don't know where in the book the citation is in our own code, but I believe this is covered under many jurisdictions beyond ours, and I'd like to have that conversation, because You heard me. I would actually correct you. I was not strongly holding views about the bi-directional nature. I do have strong views about the handicaps, and I was carrying my fellow Neil's viewpoint at the site visit, because I do believe when there is what seems to be an available parking area, somehow, it seems a shame to not figure out how we can help those who are clearly not as capable as some of us others to reach a new building, and a building that, whether we perceive now it will have use for physical meetings or in the future, it is our responsibility to have that conversation. I appreciate, Neil, you raising those issues and being on the forefront of those. So I would ask that we get some help on understanding the code at different levels to inform us.
Dave?
You know, I understand how the idea of the pavilion and, you know, that separation between that and the welcome place. And I guess my question is, what do you think the minimum distance for that would be? Or let me say that in a better way. Could you get most of that effect and still move the pavilion up along with the handicap parking?
Well, I'm going to keep going back to the big issue that they have with bringing the handicap parking outside of where we are is trying to stop people from entering the garden. You know, the whole conflict with vehicles and pedestrian crossing. And then the fact that they have such a difficult time trying to funnel people to where they need them to start, to read the rules and regulations of the gardens, get the maps, understand where they're going, and then go buy a ticket. So it's the welcome pavilion is an identifier that says this is where we start. This is how we need you to go through our garden so that we can maintain, you know, it's public accessible, keep safety for all. That is really more the issue. And I would say I don't know if I use those words, but it's depriving the handicapped is more my point, because I actually I pass that one photo around because I think it's a beautiful experience to move through that.
They could still park elsewhere if they wanted to. If they wanted to park in the further away spot, they could have the experience, or they could have the shortened walk. And I think that would be great for them to have both choices.
Yeah, it's the difficulty is controlling the flow of traffic and pedestrians. Once you open that road up full time, it's hard for them because they're not stationed down there to control that. That's the issue for them. Yeah.
I think that Mary hit on the direct answer to your question with regard to the liability that you perceived might happen, and the chances of that, my perception of the chances of that were far less than the liability that we would be incurring were we not to remove the conflicts that would happen by allowing the traffic to go up here and mix with the pedestrian traffic. I would think that would be.
I'm not saying don't put anything.
No, what I heard you say, and please correct me if I'm wrong. I heard you say that at some point when we're all gone, somebody may make an issue with Stonecrop with regard to the distance the handicap is from the building. Handicap parking is from the building. Did I misunderstand that?
No, that's true.
Okay, and all I'm saying is that my view is, I would say, if you look at that in light of the possibility of that happening, with the possibility of the conflicts that we're eliminating by keeping the vehicles out of the garden proper, I would rather take my chances with your scenario than my scenario.
Traffic then.
Yeah, I think the traffic
Somebody not happy
raises a
with
bigger
your
issue.
parking, I understand. It's a good-
Tim Rassick, who's the architect,
Right.
would like to say something. Come up.
Expand on that, I believe, sorry. To expand on what Glenn just said, this road is, I believe, dedicated for the fire department to come up and is meant to be kept clear. So it would be problematic if we have cars, visitors traversing this road, because you could have a bottleneck in case of an emergency. So you could have a safety issue. as well, just to expand on what Glenn said.
No, but what if you just brought it up to that road with maybe, would that help any of this?
I'm not where, brought it to.
I mean.
Oh, the
like if you
pavilion?
came up almost to that road, but then you had the,
Take this and
up
put it
like
here.
there. Would that help
And put
anybody
the,
about
and
this?
put the
then move
handicap part, I mean, we're
parking
running
up?
out of space to actually move the lot.
Yeah.
We want to move, I mean, we
I'm
could
just
say,
asking.
we're running,
You're running out of screen.
and, yeah, there is a screening issue from this building to not want to see cars. There's ledge and there's topography that we're staying in the flat area. So it's difficult to move into here, and I'm not sure how much we'll gain for the extra intrusion.
But your boardwalk is flat. You already told us your boardwalk was flat.
This is flat, yes.
So
Boardwalks what makes it flat.
This is what the boardwalk's, what
It's a
makes it
bridge.
flat, it actually dips in here. It comes level, it dips down, and then it rises up right about here.
everybody obviously understands that what ADA compliance is, it's about fairness and accessibility, and, without, I'm not exactly sure how to say this, but it's about balance, it's just about fairness, right? And so.
Completely agree. I agree, Kim. That's why I see this as being fair, because it's an easy, beautiful walk. If you're coming to the gardens, it's.
Beautiful walk depending upon who you are, if
Well,
you can walk. I mean,
that's true.
And ADA is not all wheelchairs.
That's why the garden offers you to call them if you need additional assistance. And they've come down and they pick people up and they bring them to other parts. They'll provide them with areas that are accessible. That is what happens. This is not a million visitors a year. I'm not sure exactly, 11,000. But it is, I see this as a very special event. You come to this beautiful parking area, you walk through, you are welcomed, you're greeted with all the information about the garden. It's an accessible path. We're not coming to the garden to go to the building, we're coming to the garden to go on a walk. That is what the garden is about. So it's not to come to go to the bothy. You do have to come through this way. You are going to come through this way, and if you want to experience the rest of the garden. But the primary reason to come to the garden is not to come to the bothy. And that's what I was speaking to with the accessibility, that it is, if it's not you're coming to the site to go to one building, the accessibility must be to the nearest accessible path.
I hear what you're saying about not coming to the building, but I think that, if you're someone who is, as I said before, if you're someone who has limited mobility, this building gives you an opportunity to go to a place that you might not otherwise go to. And, so that's my statement. So.
No, I think Mr. Zuckerman's on the right track. I think we should shake out the codes, see what, let's go to the rules. You can't.
Discussion, we seem to be covering the same ground a few times, mulching it, if you will.
We'll be happy to provide that
Thank you
information.
for your-
and
I
I'm sure
appreciate
Steve
your
will be
patience. I
happy
don't mean to
to
give
look
you
it
up,
up
but-
for you. I do have a request. We have made our application to the ZBA. We've made the first ZBA presentation. We have a public hearing scheduled for next month. I would respectfully request that you schedule a public hearing on this so we can track these things in parallel as we discussed last month.
Could I just ask a technical question before we get to that point? As I can perceive how this evolves, you first have gone through some needs discussion with the client. Stonecrop identifies their goals, desires. That must have been an iterative process to achieve this plan. You must have had other alternatives you considered Are there any that address parking in a different fashion? Is this the only parking layout that you evolved? Because as you've heard the board, the wonder is if there's other alternatives they want to consider that might allay some issues the board's raised. This must not be the only concept that you presented to the applicant.
It actually, you know, it is actually the only place we looked at for parking because it is the closest area. We're trying to minimize disturbance to the site always and stick where development is rather than go to new places. And it is the closest to the building. We did get the handicap parking up to within 5 feet in elevation of the building. It's a very hilly site, a lot of elevation change. And again, the number one issue for them was trying to keep pedestrian and vehicle conflicts down and funnel people through the site in a safe, pleasurable way to get them to that ticketing. And that is the program driver, the design driver. It does become, how do you stop cars from driving? This is a big problem for them, this road. Everyone sneaking up this road in their cars because they don't have it closed off.
Right, your parking layout still utilizes that point of access or considers that as the only other potential point of access. Arguably, there could be any other path through that proposed parking area that heads to the path that leads to the reconstructed building, right, to avoid those conflicts that you indicate are a concern.
I'm not sure I understand your
If
suggestion.
instead of considering the existing path for handicapped access closer to the building, if you had any new connection that was conceivable from the new parking area, that would be south, I presume, or west, of your boardwalk that leads you up to that other path, you may avoid conflicts. And then that's why I wondered if you had come up with any other alternative concepts in your evolution of this plan.
Well, this developed, this isn't the, you know, this evolved, obviously, but it also, as Glenn mentioned, you can see through here. So they're trying to keep the visibility, the car visibility out of the garden. So this keeps it down below and less visible from the beginning of the garden, especially with this new gesture that they're making to develop this end piece of the garden. As Tim mentioned, there's access through here. It's an emergency fire road. And this is one of their big problems, is people sneaking in cars and walking through the garden. They'll be, you know, so this is what they actually like because it keeps the cars down below where there's already parking. They're not giving up any more woodlands than they need to, and it's a location that works for them.
I understand. I haven't been on the property as much as you obviously have been, but it would seem that there's other conceivable ways to attack it that still would respect that issue of visibility or screening to the building.
Well,
We'll discuss that again. We do have issues over here with steep slopes that we can't get. We have a developed garden over here. And when we get down this way, well, there's steep slopes going up again through here. So we really, it's 67-acre property, but until you get well north of it to where the equestrian center is and the horse field is, then you get some area where you can develop a parking lot, but it's remote, it's going to be further away, and it's for everybody, not just the handicapped, but everybody, and it's going to require traffic through the garden and through the work areas that probably is not desirable. So those things were discussed. We'll look at it again.
Okay. Anybody else? No? Steve?
No, the only question is whether you want to set a public hearing or not on this. I think they feel that their plan is ready for public comment, and public comment on issues like handicap parking might be helpful to you. You may or may not have a decision from the zoning board next month. But you have the option, if you're not happy with not having it, of putting the public hearing over again. So it's up to you. You can set it or not set it, but certainly public hearing's an option here.
To be fair, we will not have the decision because the zoning board has pushed their meeting a week later, just beyond yours, so we won't have a decision. But we would,
You might want to wait then.
well, we would rather, we would like to move this and have it parallel so we can come back in May and get an approval if we're going to get an approval.
I think we talked about that last time, though, and we decided we wanted to hear from the ZBA before we went forward, since we would be presenting the public with a building that might not be the...
ZBA see it, I think, and they do. They have seen it, and it would just...
No, I think we wanted to hear from the ZBA, because what you're going to be presenting people with is a building that isn't really what the building's going to be. So it's not really, if the ZBA does not approve the height of the tower, right, and we have a hearing in parallel, we're presenting to the public something that isn't actually what it's going to be like. So my feeling is that I'd like to hear from the ZBA, before we do a public hearing for the planning board. And if you want, I can poll the board on that.
We're looking, or we'll automatically getting ourselves to June, and there's specific provision for this to be allowed, and I would just like to have it done so we can move it. I think we're talking about 32 square feet of exposed building to somebody who might be able to see it. If somebody looking at that peak going up, and if we don't get it, you're right, we do have to change the building, but that's usually not the focus of the public hearing. But
So I'll poll the board.
Thank
Neil?
My view is that if, and I use this word, I don't have a better choice of words, so I apologize, but if the current plan is what I would call the worst case, the highest peak, the handicap space is 100 and X feet away, and the public commentary is intense and significant, I don't think a lesser plan would make that commentary more intense, and therefore I have no problem having the public hearing the next month's meeting.
Peter?
I just feel uncomfortable not having an actual plan that's going to be something that can be debated as a actual, product that somebody's going to be looking at. I think that also the whole question of code, I think, is really important because this is a garden, and the whole point of landscape design and garden design is that you do have an experience, and it's a very extraordinary thing to have. And perhaps this is, there's so many dynamics that are going on here that it really comes down to what's going to be allowed in the code. That seems really important to me. So I'd like to have both of those things resolved before a public hearing gets brought in.
Yeah, I think it would be good to have those things resolved. Just because, it would be strange to have a public hearing where everybody got to talk about something that wasn't actually going to happen the way they thought it was going to happen.
Neil?
I tend to, I would like them to have the public hearing. I obviously have my problems with it, but there's nothing I don't think we can figure out, and I don't see the harm. And I don't think the ZBA is going to have a hard time with the height of the building. I happen to know that district is, for all intents and purposes, considered its own neighborhood by the zoning board. I don't see a problem there, and this parking issue, I think it's an issue, but, it comes down to probably what would be a simple solution. So I tend to think we should go ahead with the hearing.
You are the...
I'm the title.
Can you please expand on that?
You're a seven-member board. You need to have 4 votes for a decision. 1 board member is missing, 1 board seat is empty. 2 have already voted against. The most you could have is 3 in favor. There'll be no public hearing.
Not have the public hearing next month?
That'll be unanimous.
Very clever, but that won't fly.
So then there's no public hearing next
There will
month?
be no public hearing.
Okay,
Thanks, Steve. Sorry.
all right. Okay.
Give this back to Linda.
Oh, yeah, let's pass this to Linda. So the next thing on our agenda is, so the next thing on our agenda is the Hudson Highland Reserve, Route 9 and Horton Road, presenting a revised master plan addressing some of the roadway issues from the comments from the January 2017 meeting. And I'd like to recognize Neil Zuckerman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Linda, question for you. Since our January meeting, I made the following request, which was captured in your minutes of the January meeting, and I quote, Mr. Zuckerman asked to see in writing how the density calculations were calculated and to see the steps involved as to how the calculations was done, following the detailed criteria in the zoning ordinance. And added that he would like to see mapped what is constrained and unconstrained areas on a map to see how the applicant's number of dwelling units came to be. Mr. O'Rourke, who I believe is the attorney, stated he responded to the calculation has been done and will be submitted to the planning board members. Has that been submitted?
No.
Has not been
Not
submitted.
unless it was in that other packet that you guys.
So I've not seen it in any of the packets I've received.
It was just this here.
We recall that, and yes, I do remember saying that we would submit it, and to be honest with you, I thought we did.
That's why I
Right.
asked our board secretary and waited
Right.
diligently for 60 days since we last discussed it to have that. It has not been submitted, and I feel like I am not prepared to have a conversation about the Hudson Preserve without actually understanding that very most basic question, but how you arrived at this. I expressed this 60 days ago. I thought I was clear. It's in the minutes. It's expressly listed in the minutes, and it is still not here.
And that's my apology.
And that was not a personal critique.
Oh, no,
That is
no,
a
no,
challenge
no.
of having a conversation without a fundamental piece of information.
I understand that, and my understanding was that we had the calculation. In fact, we had it in our hand that evening, and I thought that it was being submitted. That's what I thought, okay? So there was no intention for misrepresentation.
No one's questioning whether you
Right.
did. It's not here. We are not able to have a discussion about that very fundamental piece. Even if it was pulled out now, unable to read it ahead of time, I would not be able to have a sense of how to interpret it. I personally feel unprepared for this conversation tonight.
Well, all I can say is that obviously it was not submitted. I take your word for it. So,
That's why I asked the board secretary.
right, and my apologies because I thought it was, all right? Insofar as a discussion this evening, I did not know that we were going to discuss specifically density. I do know that our consultants have made a submission. They're here, the owner is here with his staff, and we would like to give a presentation.
That's, yeah.
I was surprised to see that this was on the agenda tonight because we were also supposed to have a site visit so that we could talk about the steepness of where these lots are. And we had scheduled a site visit originally for February, but that was canceled. So I was expecting that before we discussed this, we would have been able to go back to the site and talk about what we saw at the last meeting. So, I agree with Neil. I don't know that I understand that you're all here, but I don't know that we're ready to talk about this because I don't think we've seen enough.
I can't address the issue in terms of the site walk. I wasn't involved in that, so I don't know what happened.
Kim, if I could,
Sure.
I understand the board's concern, and particularly Neil's point regarding information the board has wanted for a while and doesn't have. But all that said, they're on the agenda, and I think it's only fair to hear them out. You may not be in a position to respond to the information that they're going to present to you, but I think they should be allowed to put it in the record and, move the matter along to the extent that they can without the information. And now that they're on notice that you need that additional info and that you're looking to go forward with the site walk, you move forward from there and do what you can. But I think they should be allowed to present it at least to you tonight.
Okay, I'm willing to do that. Is it my, as chair, is it my decision to move forward? Okay, so, given those caveats, that we may not be able to do anything without the site visit and without this density calculation, which is important, we'll hear your presentation.
There were two significant things that have happened and that precipitated the submission this time. The site visit, as an aside, the site visit was delayed. It was at our request because our environmental consultant felt that you wouldn't get as good a look at the property in the beginning of February as you would towards the end of March. And so we precipitated that. But we have proceeded with the plan, and we have responded to some of the comments and some of the things that have happened internally. This plan is different than you saw the last time we spoke to you. The primary difference is that the road grades have been worked out, and there was a set of road grades and plans and profiles and grading submitted. So you would have the information, and more particularly so Mr. Gaynor would have the chance to study the cuts and fills that would be involved in the site before the site walk, so we would have something to work on during the site walk. The road has been moved back, frankly, to its original location. It was brought up here during one of the iterations, the several iterations of the master plan. The entry road from Route 9 to the east and northeast was moved further to the north and lengthened so that there was more road to overcome the grade. It was moved to a place where the cut and fill would not be as great as it was in the last version that you saw. That was the primary change, but that's all been done. The driveways into these core lots that are inside the loop road have been worked out so that the driveways now work. We're using common driveways to 2 or 3 different lots, as you'll see if you look more closely at the plan. If you look at the way this loop originally went around, when it got back, it cut more directly towards the entry road. That caused a significant cut through the property, and by extending it further to the north, we were able to stay on grade better and hit the road at a much more advantageous location. It was a significant change in the cut and fill, almost 10 times. We reduced the amount of excess spoil or cut by about 90%. So the impact that might be associated with this roadway is greatly reduced by this plan. I think there have been very little other, by way of other changes, minor changes here and there. We pushed the buildings a little further away from the lake, and those are the changes. We're at a point where we need comments with regard to the layout. I'm sorry if we failed to put in a calculation. I don't know if I failed, I failed, and I apologize. We have submitted, you have received some comments from the Conservation Board, you've received some comments from HHLT, today you received a letter responding to the HHLT letter. Those things are all significant documents that need to be reviewed. We've been on this project in one fashion or another for over 3 years, right? And it, with all due respect, we did, if we failed on that submission, we failed on that submission, but we have waited significant amounts of time to get through some of this process, and we've done an extraordinary amount of work. And we haven't gotten to the point where we have a declaration of significance. We haven't gotten to the point where we really have anything, and we've submitted several master plans, and we need to move this thing forward. I know Mr. Lesiaga has some, he has some comments he'd like to make with regard to the plan, and that was one of the main reasons why we wanted to speak tonight.
There's a huge one right there.
If this survey thing doesn't work out for you in the next generation.
Well, there's said, let me just speak just to just clear the air. The issue of time is no question. The board recognizes it. I think the applicant does. This is the first conservation subdivision that's been processed by the board or any applicant since the ordinance has been revised. So you did go through a significant period to get to follow the procedures of the conservation subdivision ordinance. And it required you to consider and adopt a conservation analysis and findings. That's only been done within the last 6 months or so. The applicant filed a master plan which respected the findings that were issued, only, I think, in December. So it hasn't been a significant period since that. The board, when you received it, acknowledged that a site walk would be necessary. We understand that the board has an obligation to make a statement on project density. They have, in fact, provided calculations that follow the ordinance that have been presented for review. That review is being pursued by AKRF on your behalf. But the applicant has always understood, and the board has made clear, the fact that any discussion on project design, lot layout, now that you have an actual master plan to review that respects the conservation findings, that has to await the site visit. So the site visit is only scheduled, within a few weeks of today. So subsequent to that, I anticipate that the board will move forward on the variety of issues and get much more specific on guidance as to lot layout so that the project can move forward in a more meaningful way. But it's just the process that's been followed. The calculations that were provided do follow the requirements of the ordinance, but the board clearly requested, as Mr. Zuckerman indicates, further guidance as to how that calculation was derived. And that needed a mapping or other information to illustrate the conservation areas that form the basis for the calculation, and that's the information that has not yet been submitted. So they expected to see mapping to illustrate specific areas and calculations of wetlands and whatever on a map, so they could better illustrate exactly how you've derived that calculation. And I believe that's the material that the board has been awaiting. So,
If I could just chime in really quickly on the amount of time that's been spent on this. It has been a fair amount of time. It's been a lengthy process, but I think to a large extent it's been time well spent. A project of this size and this nature could very easily, had the board and the applicant, who has done yeoman's work on this, no doubt, not gone through the analysis you've gone through, you could very easily wind up with a positive declaration and having to go through the EIS process, which can take years, it can take quite a bit of time. Well, the work that's been done has really laid the groundwork for a negative declaration to resolve the SECRA process on this application. So yeah, a fair amount of time has gone into it, no question, but I wouldn't characterize it as undue or unproductive time.
Well, I'd like to thank the board for allowing us Is it? The microphone's on. I'd like to thank you all for allowing us present our progress to you. We understand that we have the sidewalk pending, and that is a milestone. But since the last time we met and we heard concerns from the HHLT and some here, we decided to use that time to address some of those concerns, and we would like to maybe get feedback from the board and HHLT, all the people involved regarding our latest layout. We know that this is all work in progress, and we, like, even with all the time that we have spent doing this, is going to take even more time. I prepared this slideshow in response to the letter from the Hudson Highlands Land Trust addressing some of their concerns regarding development around the lake, regarding density, and regarding so they very directly question the value of a conservation subdivision versus a conventional subdivision. So I would like to just very graphically show some of the precedents that we found in the vicinity of our site. Right, so this is, we might need to do a little bit of focus work. Is it clear? Or? Okay, right here is Route 9. This is Route 9. This is our pond. And we chose 4 ponds in the vicinity, like just within a few miles of our site. All these ponds along Eastman Road North. And we made a study about what happens in these ponds and what has happened without conservation subdivisions within rural residential zoning area. So this is our site right there, 205 acres. And this is the zoning map. So the hatch here, the square hatch, is all rural residential. This tan color is, what is it? A rural conservation, RC. And this is the industrial portion of our site. This right here is suburban residential, which has a much larger density. And this is suburban residential as well. And I'll get back to that. So this is a man-made pond that is right here. It's very close to our site. And it has a lot of clearing. The white color is clearing, is pretty much a lawn. And there is a house close to it. Now there's a road that goes right by it. And this boundary is a 200-foot offset to the lake that we just represented there. So what we want to achieve with these slides is just to show that when development is close to the lake, it's not necessarily adverse to the health of the pond. Like it has been said that neighbors will throw their grass clippings and garbage into the pond, but these are very old ponds that have thrived, and there's fauna and they have an ecosystem around them. So this is another pond that we found right down the road with structures right next to it. All this white is clearing again. Now, all this happens with rural residential and rural conservation zoning. So that's another example. There's a tennis court right next to it. There's this grass clearing. There are some swimming docks on it. There's a house right next to it. This is an interesting one. This is again down the road, a man-made pond like ours, and it has a series of dwellings with the swimming docks and all these clearance, right? And people swim there. People fish. There's a road coming down next to it, and the pond is not, at least for. We haven't done any studies, but like we have with ours, but the pond does not look eutrophied, does not look like with algae blooms, or it just looks like a healthy, happy pond. So this is ours. This is at the same scale. So we have offered to have a clear area around the pond of 200 feet. This is the only house that is within that 200 feet buffer. So this right here is the 140 foot. So we have 100, and then we offered to have 40 more, and with even within the lots, we are within our own guidelines, design guidelines. We are offering to have 200 feet away from the pond. This represents that buffer, the 100-foot buffer by law. This is what we are offering as extra protection, and the 200-foot is just twice as much as what we are supposed to give by law. This is the south side of our pond, and this is crucial because also in the HHLT memo, it makes the reference to Colmart document from a few years ago, when it says that there is a wildlife corridor between the pond and Clove Creek. And that is true, but it doesn't happen everywhere around the pond. So this is Clove Creek right here, comes down, goes into the pond, and then it comes up. Well, it actually flows this way. It flows west. Possibly the person who did this in 1930s or so just did it to feed his pond. It's a man-made pond, as we all know. And the argument from the HHLT is that the wildlife corridor goes from Clover Creek onto the pond, and that is true, but we don't have any development there. Clover Creek is here, but looking at the topography, and when you guys, all the members of the board go to the site, we'll see the kind of slope that is here, and we'll see that the assessment that was made by our conservation analysis is true, stating that there's no real wildlife corridor between that our development might be obstructing. Now, I want to go back to this development here. It is within, like all this area is rural conservation zoning. And at some point, maybe 20, maybe 30, maybe 40 years ago, the zoning was modified around this man-made pond onto suburban residential. Inside this forest, and my point, and what I have stated to the board before and to the trust, is that if we don't do a conservation subdivision where we have a conservation easement and the land is not protected in perpetuity, when I am gone, when we all are gone, maybe the law will change, maybe the zoning will change, and people who own this land will say, well, I have the right, maybe the laws will change, and very easily this could happen. All these are that's a tax map. There are all those pieces of property right there. This is another example of the density that occurs within rural residential. All this is rural residential, and these houses, these structures exist today without a conservation subdivision. All these are the same scale. And I just want to show members of the board how the things look compared to our development, where we are actually giving away 180 acres, 80% of our land in perpetuity in order to preserve it. This is a chunk of our development, and I just want to go back to this to show how it does not look that different. Like the density, this is the density that we're getting with giving away 80% of our land. And this is the density that it will very likely occur eventually without saving all that land. So now our conclusion is that the only way to conserve that amount, that land, is by a conservation subdivision. And also by getting that kind of subdivision, we will actually ensure that the land gets maintained and the health of the land gets preserved. So in these cases, I'm going to go back to one of these.
Those words can say anything, since none of us can see what you've written up here. So
Oh, I'm
all we can see
sorry.
is the word conclusion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We asked in the beginning if it was clear.
I think we all said no, but you guys kept going, so that's...
No, what I heard is that you could make it out.
Because you're sitting right next to it.
All right, can you see if
And
you
you've
can
got
do the
glasses.
focus?
It doesn't, at this point, I think we're in the home stretch.
Okay, that's better.
Why don't you just read it out loud?
Yeah.
All right. So our conclusion by looking at those precedents is that only a conservation easement will guarantee saving land in perpetuity. A conservation subdivision will provide more environmental protection inside the development areas. So that means that when there's no conservation subdivision, there are no bylaws in a development. People can do whatever they want with their land, like we have seen. They can clear around the lake, they can have lawns around the lake, they can have a farm, they can have a structure, they can have a garage. That will happen, and that will be less friendly for the environment. And also what I wanted to show with this is that the wildlife corridor will not be disturbed, and I hope that I made my case with those graphics. And yeah, that's about it. This is just the plan. Thank you for listening. I really appreciate your time, and I once more I apologize for the oversight of not sending the calculations. But again, we have issued those calculations within all our studies.
On a set of maps that have been issued.
I'm not going to debate it.
So is that's it. Thank you.
Again, the project's on for site visit on Sunday, the 25th.
26th? 25th, 26th?
25. I thought it was 25.
Linda gave it to me as the 26th just now.
Is it 26? I'll be there early.
Okay, so 9:30 on the 26th.
To be very tactical, where are we actually meeting, given the size of this property? Which entrance and what part of,
At the end of the Horton Road.
in the Horton Road where the house?
Where we did,
We were first
a
met?
long time ago.
Well, as you,
Many
there are only,
moons ago.
there are not many left on the board from that, to Glenn's point.
It's true.
That's right.
So the Horton Road entrance?
I'm sorry?
Nine.
Off 9.
Horton Road off.
Horton
nine.
Road off
Yeah.
9.
End of the road. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so what's next? Thanks for your patience, everybody. We still have 4 more things to get through. So next, we have new business, Index Industrial Design, 1602 Route 9 in Garrison. The applicant is seeking approval for a proposed 2-story steel building addition with a full basement, storage, and garage for adjacent existing building. And Mr. Grasso is here to present.
Hello, my name is Andre Grasso. I'm the owner of 1602 Route 9, also the business owner of Index Industrial Design. You guys might know the building as the Index Building, adjacent to the Garrison Firehouse on Route 9. So I'm here to present to you, I was here to present to you a really nice presentation I put together. I wanted to project it in 3D, but the worst nightmare has happened. Technical difficulties. I said to the people at the office, forget the boards. They can't see it anyway. Let's just project it. So if I could ask you, we can work from the packet that I all sent you, which is pretty much what I was going to project. So we'll start on page 1. We went over this a couple of months ago. We kind of did a drive-by of a 2-story, 3,000 square foot addition on the rear of the existing building that you see from Route 9 right now. What I'm proposing is to add a 2-story steel frame stucco finish to match the existing building, concrete footings, foundation, and a basement. Ground floor would be about 1,800 square feet, consisting of kind of garage, additional shop space. And the second floor is about 2,020 square feet of just open kind of storage space. The basement, if you want to include that, adds another 1,800. So we have a total below grade and 2 stories above grade of 5,600 square feet. Little impact to the site because behind the building, which isn't really visible, is kind of a graveled area, and then there's a drive that goes up to kind of an upper lot. Most of the addition is going to encompass what's not grassy area. I mean, there's trees planted, which we plan on relocating. Hopefully, they're kind of big, but as one of the contractors said to me, it's a 50-50 shot. So if not, I mean, I'd like to move them because we grew them from the 2000 addition we did on the building where we added the second story. So if we go to the page that has a few renderings, you'll see that there are, at grade, a couple of overhead garage doors behind the building. We've taken the existing stairwell that goes to the stairway that goes to the back of the current building, kind of extended it and finessed it so that it ties now to the addition. I've moved the building away, so the buildings actually aren't going to be touching one another. There's about a 6-foot kind of alleyway between them, and that's really for construction reasons. There's a lot of nice windows in the back of the building. I like to maintain that light and not be pulling windows out and things like that. So in the end, in terms of construction, it seemed to make more sense. So again, flat roofs like the existing building. All the, we're not adding any baths or kitchens or anything to this space. So we're not really adding any, putting any stress on the existing septic, which exists in the front of the building. Water is provided by the Graymore Village Corporation, so we're not near any wells with the construction. I did bring Linda this afternoon kind of an addendum packet. Ron, you had sent a letter yesterday, and there's a second packet that addresses some of the things that you had requested, which were really kind of a lot of more notes on the drawings as to lighting and things like that.
Right.
And then I included that easement.
Right, let me just speak to that for a moment. Don't mean to interrupt the board, but obviously, the board received a package from the applicant that I'm sure has been the subject of your review. That's the basis on which we issued our technical memorandum, which you've seen and hopefully have digested. It would be best if the applicant just focused on the plan that was presented to you for review. We can acknowledge that he's resubmitted an updated plan that addresses at least the technical issues that I have raised, but this is really for the board just to initially get their bearings on what the proposal is. The primary goal of tonight would be to issue any initial comments or questions you might have, and in my view, ultimately consider whether you wanted to conduct a site walk to better understand potential environmental concerns. So if you could just focus on the application package that came in,
Okay.
and we can acknowledge that you submitted a new package that seems to address some other issues that I had raised. Thank you.
Where were we? I was describing the construction of the building. So stucco, flat roofs, primarily matching the building that's there. It's kind of simple. It's just a, two-story addition, some open space.
So, first thing we have to do is classify the project
Right.
according to, because it's greater than 1,000 square feet, it would be a major project. So we need to make a motion to do that. So I'll take a motion to classify it as a major project.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I vote aye. And then we can offer some initial comments on the application.
Right, if I could just speak for one other technical issue, I don't mean to cut the chair off, but the one matter that didn't become a topic of discussion in the initial presentation, you've seen in my technical memorandum, is the overall site development creates an impervious surface or impervious coverage that's beyond, it's higher than code permits. The applicants acknowledged it, but it does mandate that the matter be referred to the Zoning Board of Appeals for action prior to any consideration of the project by the board. So you should be aware of that. I mean,
Yeah, it was the 9%.
right. It's 9% over the 60% allowed. I think the board could still consider conducting a site walk to at least get your bearings on the proposal, but the matter does have to, does require an action by the ZBA before you can further process the application. Thank you.
If I could just jump in there real quick.
Yep.
This may not be anything, but just, Mr. Grasso, so I understand. The side yard setback, looking at the table that you provided, it says the required side yard setback for one side is 15 feet, that the existing is 14 feet 10 inches, and that the proposed is 15 feet. I don't understand how that works. Are you saying that the lot widens out where the addition's going to be put, or, I mean, how did you come to those calculations?
From existing maps.
It's on page
So-
4.
Yeah. Could have been a typo. I mean, it seems odd at 14 foot 10 is, but,
I suspect it's all based on a hard survey. Probably the
Yeah.
existing building is within 2 inches of code. It's pre-existing, if you will. And the proposed addition that he proposed to construct is going to comply.
Right.
So does the applicant, should he be pursuing?
I'm not sure if you need to go. I know if you're going to expand a non-conforming building, that you generally have to go. But if the expansion doesn't create any new non-conformity, then I don't know that you do. So if you're going to have to go to the ZBA anyway, let me just take a look into that issue. I mean, if you're going over for one variance, I mean, it's a couple inches. But if you need it, you might need to go over for two.
Okay. I think that is, now that we're talking about it, I think the existing is there and we're moving it over. We're moving the
No,
building.
The existing building just doesn't comply. The proposed addition does.
Well, it's got to be because the lot, either that or the addition is narrower. It's further set in.
It's just set in 2 inches, that's all. You can't see it on plan.
Well, it looks like it's further out on this side.
Here's the building. This is the building here.
Yeah, and this is the addition.
Right, so this is
It
almost
looks like
the
it's
same thing.
further out.
It doesn't to me, but that's okay. That's okay.
There and here, you gonna tell me this is closer?
This right here.
Oh, all right. I thought it was this. It's this?
Yep, that's what I'm.
All right, all right.
So what do we think, Steve?
I don't know.
So Steve will make
I don't
a
know, but if he's,
determination and advise
but
the
refer
board.
him to the ZBA for the variances that he needs, any necessary variances. We'll draft it up in his application. We'll address the specific ones. He may not need one in regard to side yard, but he does as far as impervious surface for
Is
sure.
there a tolerance in that?
Tolerance?
No,
No.
no, 15 is 15.
Yeah.
If you don't comply, you don't comply.
We're not tolerant.
Right. So, but
One
you will
thing,
respond.
Your page
Yeah,
four.
yeah, no, I'll carry on.
On page 4, it says 68% impervious, but on your map, it says 69%. So you'll want to rectify that. So then what we need to do is make a motion to send him to the ZBA, correct? Based on the impervious surface
Yeah,
coverage
and if you
and,
want to do a site visit, you could do a site visit. That's
Okay.
up to you.
so can we get a motion to refer this matter to the ZBA?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and what do you think about scheduling a site visit? Good? Anybody have any objections?
So I just want to, just for our own consistency purposes,
Yep.
and maybe I'm wrong, but we just sent him to the ZBA.
Yep.
Site plan is different than a public hearing, clearly, but I just want to make sure we are feeling like we're being consistent in what steps we take vis-à-vis multiple projects. So do we feel like it's okay for us to pursue a site plan visit that's also a public meeting in many ways because the public comes and walks it with us? It's effectively a public meeting as well.
Well, if the ZBA doesn't grant him the impervious surface coverage, then he would have to go back to the drawing board, presumably, to fix that.
Right.
So it's not a public hearing.
Yeah, your question on the prior application wasn't relative to a sidewalk, it was relative to a public hearing.
No,
Okay.
but they're both public meetings where people
Right,
are getting awareness and facts about a thing. We rarely have members of the public join us, but on occasion, not never, but rarely. My daughter, I think, came once. I'm just raising it. I'm fine to do it, I just want to.
Listen, if you wanted to say, and it's true, I mean, there's a lot of validity to it, that the board member's time is valuable, and you only have so much to put in, and if he doesn't get the variance, the application may not go forward, and you'd be wasting your time if you go before he gets the variance. I think that's a perfectly legitimate point, and you might not want to go for the site visit for that reason, and if you decide that, that's fine. But I don't
On my
think
personal
that,
perspective, I did say before that I was fine doing the things in parallel for the purpose of supporting whether Glenn's application or this application. I have no problem myself, but I just want to raise it, given we just had this conversation on a relative basis.
big difference between a site visit and a public
Well,
hearing. I mean,
yes,
the
it-
site's not going to change. You go there, you can see.
Yes
the
and
building's
no,
gonna-
but what you do with it could change. So, for example, when we visited, very near this site, just south of it, we visited what was going to be at one point a car wash, and we had an enormous number of, I don't know if it's enormous, I'm overstating. We had members of the public come who lived close by, and it was very important for them to understand how the water was going to traffic through the area. And that became, if that plan, which actually was then eventually did not happen, for them that was in many ways the equivalent of their public hearing. So I'm not disagreeing with you. They're clearly different steps. Just want to raise it. I don't have a strong opinion. I just wanted to raise it.
It's board's discretion. You can do it or not do it. It's up to you.
What are we setting? We're setting, Andre,
Site.
we're setting them over there for the impervious surface
And
the
potentially the side yard setback.
and the setback, and that's it.
Right.
Okay.
In this particular case, given that it's a building we see all the time when we drive up and down that road, I don't think having a site visit is that, having the site visit in advance of hearing from the ZBA, unless everybody doesn't want to spend their time. Can we, do we have, we may have another site visit to couple it with if we move forward. So I personally would be in favor of having a site visit. Anybody else? It's okay. Do we need all of us to agree on that? Since
Well, you
we're-
need to make a motion to go have a site visit,
Okay.
and somebody second it, and then you vote.
Okay. No, we'll find out, right?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so now we have to pick a date. What do you think, Linda? April?
Yeah, it's April.
But before our meeting?
So the meeting is
20th.
the 20th.
Really? Oh, yeah, of
The
course.
9th, the 2nd, or the 16th?
So I'm good for the,
Easter is the 16th.
Hmm.
So that- The 2nd or the 9th.
the 2nd or the 9th is fine with me. Any
I'm
preferences,
not
anybody?
available the 2nd, so I can do the 9th.
Okay,
9th is okay?
9th okay for everybody else? Okay. 9:30. So now we move to the next item, correct? Thank you, Mr. Grasso.
9:30 a.m.
Okay,
You better send him an email.
so, thank you all for waiting so patiently. Number 8, John and Kimberly Sabatini, 101 Dix Castle Road, Garrison. The applicant is seeking revisions to the approved site plan of May 2016.
This is a checklist of the modifications that we're making. Some revised drawings to just of the house itself and the addition.
Well, that's what I could smell. Yeah.
Ink?
Yeah, something like that. I think it's this, though. Anyway. 10 minutes and we have to switch? Okay. Okay.
I don't think I'll be too long. Justin Caker from Highlands Architecture. Yeah. Okay. Does that work? All right. This project, as you know, has already received site plan approval. After receiving preliminary estimates from contractors, we have decided to scale the project back significantly. The addition has been reduced from 1492 square foot footprint to 1,206 square feet. The construction access road and the secondary driveway have been eliminated. We're going to access the area where the addition's going to go by removing 2 bays of the 3-bay garage temporarily and then rebuilding it once we back out. So we had discussed this a long time ago, but we went down the other road to get the road. But now we're, we have to be realistic when it comes to the actual funding for a project. We have still tried to maintain the I know you're not the architectural review board, but the architectural character, the modern mountain house look to the addition. We reduced impervious surface area, site disturbance. The terracing has been reined in below the pool terrace. The pool's staying, same size, same shape, same location. Addition's been reduced. Of course, the roof and everything with it. We had a new stair inside the house and a reading loft that's been eliminated too to sort of squeeze the footprint of the addition. And ultimately, we feel that changes that we're making have actually improved the design. So you can see these are the old, did these about 1.5 years ago, the addition renderings, and we have new ones which we can show you. We've submitted the plans. The plans have gone back to the health department for a second review for bedroom count, and that looks very promising. Again, going back to the not expanding fields, but changing the septic tank itself for the capacity. And let's see here. You get a pretty good idea of, these are just drawings, but this is, the end of the house is here right now. This is the addition. We've walked the site a couple of times, and as you know, it's very steep. And with these changes, of course, we've significantly reduced the site disturbance, tree removal, and kept tree removal and disturbance to just around the area of the addition, the pool, and the terrace. So with that said, let's see if I'm missing anything. No, we just feel that the moves that we have made, we're seeking an amendment to the previously approved site plan because these changes are very significant and have reduced the impact quite a bit, and we're hoping that we can expedite the amendment process so we can move forward and get this project built.
Well, good. Glad to see less disturbance. Yeah. But we had a lot of concerns about the second driveway, and it's nice to see that change. So the first thing we have to do is classify the project. It was formerly a minor project, and Ron recommends that we say that this one is likewise a minor project. So I need a motion to classify this project as a minor class. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. As far as completeness, we're missing an EAF. And according to Ron, upon receipt of that information, the application could be deemed complete. And so that's obviously something that's between the two of you.
That needs to be filed by the applicant before the board's permitted to act on it. Right, the filing of an EAF.
Okay.
No, this would be a short form.
Short form.
Yeah, for a minor project.
And it's because the prior one would have changed because of the changes in the project.
Right,
That's correct.
exactly.
Yeah. So you'd revise whatever you had before.
One matter the board can discuss or determine is whether you wish to have any further site walks. I suspect there's none necessary because you've been to the project site at least 2 times to my knowledge.
Anybody have any desire? No. I think we can forego that, yeah. Are there any comments? at this point?
The one other matter that can be considered is, since it's a minor project, the conduct of a public hearing is discretionary. Again, you've had public hearings on the prior project. You can make should be able to make a determination tonight as to whether you wish to have another public hearing on this latest amendment, or whether you can waive that hearing.
So I'd entertain some discussion on that. Does anybody have I know, how many of you were on this
Did anybody come to the public hearing?
public hearing the last time? No.
I didn't think so. And now what's happened with this is that things have been taken away, not added.
Correct.
So I see no reason.
Right.
That's a question I have too. As far as the EAF, when we filled that out originally, it was pretty excessive, the disturbance that we were making. We still have to resubmit
It would
that.
still be appropriate to identify on the EAF form how it's changed,
Okay,
right? Just to have a basis for the board to make a secret declaration.
okay.
I mean, it's not going to be an extended hiccup in the process, but it's a document that should be filed for the record.
So that it's accurate.
Right.
Just so that it represents this project and not the prior project.
Is there any way that we can get that to you sooner, or do we have to wait?
Absolutely, no, you should file it immediately. I half expected that would have been carried in tonight, so you can bring it in as soon as you want. Does the board want to make a motion on whether or not to schedule a public hearing, or to waive the public hearing? Just for the record?
Yeah. Anybody want to make that motion?
I'll make a motion to waive the public hearing.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Now, given all those issues, recognizing the minor nature of the project, no need for a sidewalk or public hearing, the board, if you understand the extent of the project tonight, you may want to consider taking an action on the application at the very next meeting, which would just require me to prepare resolutions, as I typically do, for your consideration for April.
But we need that other document, right?
Well, yeah, provided that gets filed.
Yeah.
As I said, I suspect that'll be here. It's not here tonight, which surprises me, but it'll be here in the morning.
So would anyone like to make that motion? What do we think?
Yeah, to consider,
To say what specific.
to consider action on it for next meeting and direct me to prepare the necessary resolutions.
Absolutely.
So we're running into the third encounter of this evening? We make a determination on something before we get the information, the EAF.
EAF, but since the EAF will just be a more limited,
You won't be making that determination until next meeting.
Right.
And you'll likely have that document
just
in your hand.
asking Ron to prepare we don't have to approve them, he's just preparing them so that we can approve them at the next meeting if we want to.
Absolutely.
It's all good with me.
Okay, so who makes the motion? Neil, you make that motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So the other Neil made the second, Linda, just in case you couldn't hear. This Neil made the second. That other Neil and the other Neil. Okay, so I think that's it for this. Thank you. And great. Okay, so moving on. Jeremy and Amy Sampson. Is it 362 West Point Road or 362 Old West Point Road? Old West Point Road, okay. The applicant is seeking to divide the lands of Jeremy and Amy Sampson from lands of John E. and Catherine A. Chula, 372 Old West Point Road. Thanks. There's too many documents. Oh, right. Did you change it? You need to change yet?
That one's significant, it is, probably 7.
Oh, I thought you said it was 10 minutes a while ago. Oh, okay. Thank you.
The Schulers and the Sampsons are neighbors. They both live on non-conforming lots. The Sampsons in particular is a very small lot that was created well before zoning, I think in about 1952. And the Schulers own two pieces of property, neither of which is conforming. So they have decided, the Schulers have decided they would like to consolidate the house lot that they have with a portion of the vacant lot that they have and take another portion of the vacant lot and have it added to the Sampsons lot. So we are over the threshold that requires subdivision approval. We're over the 10% threshold. We're going to need your opinion, Mr. Gaba, on this, but were this only two lots, we couldn't do it because one or the other would become more non-conforming. But I believe that since we have two non-conforming lots and we're eliminating the conforming lot, we're making each of the resulting lots less non-conforming. So if we can do that, we don't need to go to the ZBA. So it's a very simple thing. If you look at the left side of the thing, you'll see the three lots as they're currently configured. In the top little panel, there's the two Schuler lots are the two larger ones. The Sampson lot is the smaller one. Then the next panel, you'll see the area, the vacant lot that's owned by the Schulers broken into two parts with two different cross-hatchings. Those are the properties that are going to be merged, one into the Schulers' large lot and the smaller one into the Sampsons lot. And at the bottom, you'll see what's going to result. So it's no building, no construction, simply getting closer to conformity, one less non-conforming lot in town. And so we ask you to schedule a public hearing and approve it next month.
Okay. That looks pretty straightforward to me. Do you have any comments, Ron?
Nope, the only issue is I think we have to make referral to Putnam County Planning.
Did I identify that? Was we within 500
Yeah.
feet of Route 403?
Yeah, you
Yeah, I think so.
identified it.
Yeah.
So that's a mandatory referral that could affect some time. But again, the same issues remain. Should make a determination as to whether there's any desire to conduct a site visit. There's physically no construction, no new construction that's being proposed. Any nonconformities are being made less so if there's any impact. So that may be a consideration for you. There's some technical issues that the applicant can easily resolve on plan. And then there's a matter of setting a public hearing, which is mandatory for subdivision.
Okay.
Can I ask a quick question? What was the impetus for this? Did something particularly occur that?
Mr. Schuler?
Please, sir.
The original
You have to speak in the microphone.
You have to talk into the mic because that's a recording.
All righty. The original lot that is the second lot, the vacant lot, was owned by another individual that really subdivided the parcel incorrectly, in my opinion, leaving only 3/10 of an acre to the main house. That made problems to not only the new house. This house is over close to 100 years old. The house I live in. The new house, as you can see, was built quite close to the original house. I'm going to use the terms Turner julep.
to help myself explain this to you better. Well, Turner came to the conclusion that he was going to subdivide his property to where he's going to leave himself 3/10 of an acre for whatever reason, and this lot here, this vacant lot. It never worked properly because of 3 reasons. One, we have a driveway right here that really doesn't service anybody. It's almost impossible for anyone to store vehicles, get any kind of delivery. There is another driveway that was constructed by that same individual, and I'm not sure, well, I'm pretty sure that he did get a curb cut to put that driveway in, and it exists on my property that I purchased after the fact. There's another situation that I wanted to solve, and that is there's a catch basin that sits in that vacant lot, picking up, as you might see, if you went to the site, we're talking about slopes here, so you have drainage. And that catch basin catches most of the drainage coming down off of the slope. That was outside of my property. I'm sorry, that was in my property. And the exhaust pipe coming from that catch basin goes over the lands of Sampson. So I figured for all these years, let's eliminate the driveway that doesn't work, and I get problems with that rationale. Solve the situation, get it to where I consolidate what I own, fix the situation with the catch basin and pipe, and my new neighbor gets an access to his property with a better driveway. Should I discuss the other aspect? My theory on it was mostly aesthetics. Get rid of the driveway that doesn't work for him or me. Get it to where he has better access. He gets deliveries. He gets neighbors visiting, family visiting. They have to park somewhere. So my basis of rationale was 1, aesthetics, 2, to eliminate 2 problems: the driveway, and the drainage system. And this does it.
Okay. So we need a motion to refer this to county planning. Anybody want to make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Do we think we need a site visit? I would say no, personally.
It's fine.
Okay. So do we have to vote on that, or do we can just, no?
If you don't want to call it, you don't have to, then no site visits scheduled. That's
Okay.
up to you. If you want to do a vote, do a vote.
I think we're pretty much agreed here. Ron has his technical issues to resolve, which he'll resolve with the applicant.
Yeah, we'll work with the design consultant to resolve those.
And we need to schedule a public hearing.
Well, yes, but first you should declare this to be an unlisted action under SECRA and declare yourselves to be lead agency.
Okay.
Identify an uncoordinated review.
Yes, and an uncoordinated review.
Okay.
You're the only involved agency, so it's necessarily that, but Mr. Gaynor likes to observe the proprieties, so in an uncoordinated review.
So it's an unlisted action in an uncoordinated review. Can we do that all in one motion?
That's right, and you're going to be lead agency. You're going to be lead agency.
Okay, so can we do that all in one motion? So who would like to move that we declare this an unlisted action in which we will be lead agency in an uncoordinated review?
I will so move.
Peter, and second?
I'll second.
And all in favor? Aye. Okay. So now we would schedule a public hearing. Okay. So that would be next month? Is that appropriate, Ron? Yeah? So we
We'll
need a,
get the county referral back prior to the public hearing.
we will or we will not?
We will.
We will.
I'll make sure.
Okay. So I need a motion to schedule a public hearing for the next meeting in April.
I'll make
I'll
the
make that
motion.
motion.
We'll give it to David. Do you want to second
Okay,
it?
I'll second.
And all in favor? Aye. We're good.
You know, I'm never presumptuous, but would you consider asking Mr. Gaynor to prepare a resolution for approval following the public hearing?
Draft resolution.
Draft
You
resolution.
want it?
Would someone like to make a motion to direct Ron to prepare a draft resolution?
Her to do that one. I like Glenn's speed.
And
I admire
and
that.
seeker as well?
A negative declaration.
And a negative deck?
Who says
Okay,
it take
so
a
Neil
long
said
time?
yes. Neil made the first motion. Who would like to make the second motion? I'm tired here. Neil two, second
We're putting the
motion.
negative declaration in on that motion also?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn. All right, so this is it. Mr. Hartford, are you still here? Number 10, Rockman Berquist, 67, Old West Point Road, Garrison.
Bond paper I've ever.
I know, right? The applicant is seeking approval of a new residential estate, which includes a main house, detached garage, guest house, pool house, and outdoor pool.
Great. Hello, I'm James Hartford, River Architects. I know many of you personally, but this is my first time actually presenting to the planning board in Philipstown. It's an honor. So we are, this is a project that's in its early stages. We've been approached by our clients to develop basically a series of residential structures as passive house structures, so ultra-low energy buildings that will not consume fossil fuels on site. They will be used in the neighborhood of 70 to 90% less energy in their performance. So the project site is has an existing driveway that for some reason the application was withdrawn after the driveway was created by the previous landowner. We've spoken to that landowner, or the seller of the land, Roland Padilla, who had explained that he had stated it was a bond. I believe that probably was help me out here, an escrow that was probably in place for that. I don't really understand the mechanisms. No one at the pre-meeting could actually explain how this application was withdrawn for an existing driveway. But the driveway on the site is there. There's a considerable amount of site disturbance related to that original work. And where we're proposing to do the structures is in part in that disturbed area and in a flat area. So no new work will be in steep slope area. So if you'd like, I can walk you through a little bit here. The site is adjacent to Graymore property, and there's this rise here where we're locating the structures. The area.
Just make sure I get the easel back.
Yes. Oh, sure. Sorry.
You want
Terrific.
to put it on the chair? You want to just put it on the chair? Glenn, do you want to take it down?
Glenn, we can.
We can
I
just
can
put it
use
on the chair.
Leave it. I'll get it from you. Thank you very much. So, where we're siting the main house here is actually is a heavily disturbed area. There's fill that's been brought in. We're actually trying to correct that disturbance by cleaning it up. And then these other structures are in this kind of the flat top area there. So this entire driveway is existing. There are older carriage roads that traverse the site and exit the site. Those will be used in some of our work here. There is an existing area that's already been disturbed as part of the deep hole tests and was cleared for the septic. And there's actually conduit trenched all the way up to this area that's in place. This is all done previously, so not by our client. So what they have Board of Health approval for a 4-bedroom residence based on this, on the tests done here. We are going to be looking for obviously more bedrooms and so expanding that septic area. So that's work that we have to do. There was some a little bit of confusion in the EAF application. My understanding was that as far as approvals, that it would be done both administratively as a work permit once we've gotten the special permit for the larger footprint area. So there are portions of it that were left blank because I thought we didn't need to fill out those areas. So my misunderstanding.
Yeah, you will be filling them out.
Yes, I will, with great accuracy. So, this plan is still in development and evolution. We will be essentially doing a garage structure and a main residence and a pool house with a pool adjacent to it. We're looking at possibly combining the guest house structure with the garage structure now, so that this is a more involved plan. We may, in fact, build less. But.
Do you want to offer any initial comments?
Sure, yeah, this is a site plan application. So initially, what the board wants to do is classify the project. It meets the criteria for a major project, so that should be the initial determination of the board, just for the record. So the applicant indicates that no steep slopes will be disturbed. That was a question I had raised in my technical memorandum. That should be illustrated on plan because there are areas where I think classified or regulated slopes exist on the property. If any do, I'm seeking to have you present to the board a slope analysis, which your surveyor can easily perform and provide in a future submittal to the board. It'd be good to have that in advance of any site walk that the board might schedule. And so that would satisfy the question I had as to whether you also might need a special permit. So it sounds as though you won't, but provide the data on which the board can make that determination. And then as the applicant's representative indicates, the EAF was incomplete. That'll get resolved. There's a referral that's required to Putnam County Planning. So that should be resolved tonight. And then I think the next issue would be just to determine whether you wish to have a sidewalk, and the extent of disturbances on the property seem to be significant. There's multiple houses proposed, garages. It may be a matter that you wish to conduct a sidewalk.
Okay. So the first thing we need to do is classify this as a major project. I'll entertain a motion in
I'll
that.
make that motion.
David, second. Peter, all in favor? Aye. I vote aye. So the special permit is going to,
Will likely disappear, but it requires that they file supplemental information to confirm that issue.
and the EAF, we have to also get them to
Yeah, again, I
file.
likely suspect that will come in quickly.
We need to make a referral to Putnam County Planning, so I'll entertain a motion for that. Peter, second.
Second.
David, all in favor? Aye. Okay. Schedule a site visit, since this is not far from Index, we could do it maybe the same day. What do you think, guys? April 9th?
Yeah, you're down in that area anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that where we're going to Andres?
Yeah, that's Andre. Yeah.
So that would be at 10:30, since the index visit is at 9:30? So do we need to move that we're going to have a site visit? Yeah, okay. So who would like to make that motion?
I'll move.
Neil.
April 12th.
Second?
Site visit. April 9th. site visit,
April 9th?
sorry.
Second?
That's a Sunday.
Yes, it's
Sunday,
Sunday,
yeah,
10:30 in the morning.
Or
Second? Peter? All in favor? Aye. A little punch drunk here.
Charge of time.
And is there anything else we need to say tonight? Secret.
It appears based on what the applicant's indicating, there will be another potentially involved agency, being Department of Health, for the expanded SSTS. But you can still conduct an uncoordinated review if that's the board's desire, so.
We've been doing that more, right? Steve, sorry to make you repeat this.
No, it's no big deal. If somebody like the Department of Health or sometimes the DEC is involved in your application, you have another permitting board, it's a good idea, not required, but unless type 1 action, but for unlisted action, it's not. But it's a good idea to do a coordinated review, because then all those other agencies who, you can't speak for them, but it's my impression, would prefer not to be bothered going through secret review. DOH doesn't want to be doing secret reviews. We'll appreciate you having done your review and come up with a negative declaration, because then they can just rely on that and go forward. So I'm not going to take 5 minutes. So the thing to do is, as Mr. Gaynor indicates, is to declare yourselves, your intent to be lead agency in a coordinated seeker review, and then your secretary will circulate a notice of intent to be lead agency, and if nobody objects, which nobody will, within 30 days, you will be lead agency, and you can go on from there. So that's the motion you should make.
Okay, and it's not an unlisted action?
It is an unlisted
Okay, so it is
action.
an unlisted action.
Right.
So we need a motion to to declare this an unlisted action, to declare us as lead agency in our intent to be lead agency in a coordinated review. Who would like?
Coordinator. No, he.
Coordinated.
I'm sorry.
Coordinated. Who would like to make that motion?
Sorry.
Peter will make that motion. Second,
Second.
Neil Zuckerman. All in favor? Aye. Okay. So that takes care of seeker. So any other thing we need to discuss here about this particular application? I do want to ask one thing, James. Is this in a ridgeline protection? Because you kept saying it was at the top.
It is not in a ridgeline overlay.
Okay.
Right.
And no other overlays?
I had done that analysis, and there was. I'm trying to remember. It was
town aquifer.
Yeah, there was, just something like looking at the DEC overlays. There were quite a few. The mapper. There was something about just a generic regional wide, like rare animals potential.
Yeah,
But it
it
was-
covers most, if not all, of the town.
Exactly, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was the
So
only
we
thing.
identified that, right.
Did I miss it, or is the total square footage of the buildings not in the package?
That was not listed in the package because of my misunderstanding of that document. But the total square footage of the buildings as reflected in the application is now 11,836. That will likely drop. So.
Will you be submitting renderings to the board, or?
We have renderings. These have been in the package, yeah. They're, again, the plan is in flux, but we wanted to get it in early to make sure we're working with you.
Will the plan be in such flux that our site plan visit would be significantly modified? Meaning where things would be and sizes would be dramatically changed?
Essentially, we're looking at this area, and that's, so, we're looking at maybe, really, it's just shifting things around right there. It's not like we're going to go off that mound much.
Okay. And
So you'll indicate where those places are, as far as you know them? So when you go there, we have like some flags or something.
Yeah, they're flagged currently. I'll be there to help, clarify.
Where do we meet you?
Good question. Right there.
Okay. And where's Graymore?
So,
Once we-
so this is Old West Point Road.
You should be at the frontage, but I mean, at some point, we're going to drive into the property, right? That driveway is accessible?
Yeah, I'll make sure that I have
Yeah.
a key. I don't have a key yet, but it's a nice walk.
Okay. And it's on the east side of Route 9? The part of Old West Point that's on the east side of
Correct.
Route 9?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Index is up here.
Just beyond Raymore. Yeah.
Just past, the other way, north of Graymore. Yeah.
Now you're coming down West Point Road East.
By the Garrison Garage.
Yeah.
Comes down, goes across.
Yeah.
Right.
The Garrison,
Right, yeah.
It's
north
exactly
of Greenwood.
the left after Index.
Okay, great. So I think that's it. Do we have any other business that we have to discuss outside of our normal
You
business?
have 1 minute to adjourn.
So, a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Done. Thank you, everybody.